All right, what's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about some more specialized mechanics that aren't at a lot of bosses. Naturally, that means the first place we're going to start is Kerapac. The big gimmick with Kerapac is the time warp mechanic, and what time warp does is it snapshots your character a tick before you press it, and then it reverts you and all of your stats back to that point. What that means is it will revert your prayer, your HP, and all of your adrenaline, as well as the cooldowns of all your abilities. Although it is a little bit buggy with some of the necromancy stuff. With that being said, there are a lot of ways that you can abuse this. So, with necromancy, you have a few options. One, you can skulls as soon as time warp is about to expire, and you'll just get your skulls back. Same thing, you can living death as soon as your time warp is about to expire, and then you basically get a relentless proc for free, and you'll have your living death up for the next time warp. You can also life transfer because you'll get all of that health back. So if you are confident that you're not going to die, then using life transfer is just completely free. And that's just a few of the things that I can think of off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go in and do a kill, and I'm going to explain why I'm time warping when I am, and I'll show you what I'm getting out of each time warp. So in phase one of Kerapac, you don't really have, or not, you don't have access to time warp. So you can mostly just do this phase at however you see fit. So what I'm doing is just building up all of my stacks so I can have them for the beginning of next phase. Okay, so as soon as this phase starts, you're going to be able to time warp. So what I'm going to do here is time warp living death. Now I'm going to get out a skulls. I'm going to life transfer. I'm going to finger of death. I'm going to walk under him. So you see, I got back all of my adrenaline. My living death is back off cooldown. And we can just do basically an enhanced living death rotation, which is really nice. So the reason I time warp right at the beginning of this phase is with proper timing, you can get another skulls in and still get your walk under without hitting the rift. However, I didn't do that here, so it doesn't really matter. But that's why I do it. It's for optimal timing. If you don't care about optimal timing and you just want to know how to use time warp, alternatively, you can just time warp after the walk under, and then you can basically just do the same thing, but it's way less strict if you do it then. So now my priority is just to build back as many of my stacks as I can. Make sure, so I'm about to time warp again, so I'm just making sure my adrenaline's higher. So now my adrenaline pot's on cooldown, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to time warp right before skulls. So now you'll see I'll be able to basically get a relentless proc on my living death. So there, the time warp just procced. I messed up the movement there, but it doesn't really matter. So the timings on a lot of these time warps are very specific. So in the next kill, we'll go over exactly why I'm using the timings that I'm using. But generally speaking, this is what I'm doing to get the most. So this time warp is going to be relatively complicated. I'm going to time warp here and use my thing, use my living death. I'm going to hop into this body and power burst. And then now I get all my adrenaline back. I'm going to drag my skulls over here. This is like relatively complex, so you don't have to do this at all. I just do it because it's what I'm used to. So now what I'm setting up for here is another time warp where I'm going to use devotion. The way that devotion works is that every time you kill an enemy under devotion, it'll extend its timer by 4 seconds up to a cap of 12. Conveniently, there are 3 echoes here, and these echoes count as enemies for the sake of devotion. So you can get a fully extended devotion and have its cooldown reset, which gives you a lot of survivability. So I'm going to bloat this guy, time warp devotion. Now I can kill this guy. And I'll do as much damage as I can to this guy. So now you'll see that my devotion is off cooldown. I still have devotion ticking. And like I have all of my adrenaline back and everything. So this is one of the easiest ways to survive the last phase. So I just put my devotion back on. And we can basically just chill during this last phase. Don't have to worry about any of the damage that we're taking. So that's what happens if you use your time warp properly. Now, unfortunately, because of the way it snapshots, it uses the tick before you press the button. So what can happen is you can severely mess yourself up if you input your time warp too late. So now we'll show what that looks like. Okay, so let's say you're unfamiliar with the time warp and you do it too late. So here I time warped and I used living death on the same tick. So let's see what happens here. So I'm gonna try to do the walk under. I got the walk under, but you see my adrenaline is completely drained. So if you use your time warp a tick too early, then it will, or if you use your living death like the same tick or the tick before, you just delete all of your adrenaline. So that is really bad and you'll get punished really hard. Also, if you use your time warp a little bit too late, what can happen is you'll try to walk under Kerapac and it'll stall your movements, which means you have to deal with rifts. Now, dealing with rifts isn't the biggest deal ever, but if you're not prepared to deal with rifts and you're still learning how to like optimize your rotation, it can feel pretty bad. But yeah, that's like the major mistake that you can make is by time warping at inopportune times. And if you do that, it can make it extremely challenging for you to play the game. One last thing, time warp has a really buggy interaction with death skulls where if you use your death skulls, the ability after time warp, it'll just give it a random cooldown under 12 seconds. If you use your death skulls a few abilities into your time warp, it seems to be fine, but just be aware that that's a thing. So now here we're just going to finish up the kill regularly, but that's pretty much it for the guide. I think I've gone over everything you need to know about time warp. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.